Hey, what's up, guys? This is Rich with Red Phone Video here, and I just wanted to show you some of the movies that I picked up for the month of October. It's basically my latest movie haul. These aren't all the movies that I picked up for the month of October, but it's a lot of the stuff that I picked up recently and like some sales and some stuff that I got from Vinegar Syndrome. And I'm kind of setting the vibe here with the Vinegar Syndrome shirt, so I'm going to start with those. Right off the bat, I'm going to show you Rabid Grannies. This badass looking slipcover. Look at that lenticular slip. That is just gnarly. Yeah, this is a movie from 1988. It was directed by Emmanuel Curvin, I think is his name, and it's like a Belgian horror flick. It's not a Troma production. This wasn't produced by Troma, but Troma ended up picking it up for distribution. And I used to have this movie on DVD. I think I still do. I think I even have the old Troma Blu-ray. But I'm glad Vinegar Syndrome put this out. It's a pretty fun movie. You know, you could compare it to stuff like Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead and Peter Jackson's early stuff like Dead Alive and Bad Taste. It's not at all comparable, in terms of execution or quality, but it has some gruesome, gory stuff going on. There's some cool sequences. It's a bloody, silly, fun romp. If you like stuff like that, if you like your B movies, if you like your trash, your sleaze, definitely check out Rabid Grannies. Next movie that was sent to me from Vinegar Syndrome for the subscription package is Blood-Sucking Freaks. Now, Rabid Grannies was a Blu-ray. This one, I believe, is a 4K. And Blood-Sucking Freaks, yeah. This is a movie that I haven't seen since I was like 17 or 18. And it just has that whole Grand Guignol feel to it. It's directed by Joel Reed, I think is his name. And rest in peace, Joel Reed actually died in 2020 from COVID complications. But he directed this movie in 1976, I want to say. And he also did a movie called Bloodbath before this. Blood-Sucking Freaks. It's got like a brain-sucking sequence. It's got some pretty gross stuff in here. And I hate using that term torture porn, but that is kind of what this movie is. It's paying homage to a lot of those movies, like, a lot of the blood-drenched stuff from Herschel Gordon Lewis. A lot of people will say this movie doesn't really need a 4K upgrade, but I do. I mean, I think a lot of these old, obscure, grainy-ass movies that were shot on like 16 millimeter and, I don't even know if this movie was shot on 16 millimeter, but I do know it was made for real cheap. I love how Vinegar Syndrome is picking a lot of these old movies up, some of these old rare obscurities, and restoring them and, giving them a second shelf life. Because Blood-Sucking Freaks, I mean, I remember the DVD, especially the VHS. I think that's the first time I actually saw it. The VHS looks horrible. And, the DVD, it was kind of shoddy. It was no prize either. So yeah, Blood-Sucking Freaks on 4K. Definitely check this one out. Next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have a movie called Mother's Day from 1980. This is a movie that was directed by Charles Kaufman. Not to be confused with Charlie Kaufman, the famous screenwriter. This is a movie I used to rent all the time on VHS when I was a kid because I just loved the cover. But yeah, this movie is basically about two psychos, two brothers that brutalize and kidnap like three young women, I believe, just to please their mother. And it's kind of playing on that whole Mrs. Bates thing. This was one of the only movies directed by Lloyd Kaufman's brother, Charles Kaufman. He actually runs a bakery in San Diego now, last I heard, which is cool, but, it's kind of a shame that, he didn't go on to do more horror films, because Mother's Day is such an underseen deep cut that it has some pretty zany sequences and a real memorable, scary opening. At least it was whenever I was a kid. And then it has a totally like bonkers, what the fuck, like ending that just comes out of left field. It's a cult classic. Eli Roth kind of mentioned it a few years ago and kind of gave it a second shelf life. So yeah, if you haven't seen Mother's Day, definitely get on this one too. And also, there's a remake of this movie. It's not similar at all in terms of plot, but it has Rebecca De Mornay in it, from what I remember, and it's actually not bad. Check out the remake of Mother's Day too, but I would start with the original because this movie is pretty badass. Now, last movie in the Vinegar Syndrome pile, we have Mark of the Devil. And Mark of the Devil, this is basically just, about witches, witch hunters, actually. And it takes place in Austria in the 1700s. This was a movie directed by Michael Armstrong, I do believe. But this came out in 1970, and it was released on Blu-ray, or DVD first, of course. I have the Blue Underground DVD of this. And then it was released on Blu-ray later on by Arrow, I want to say. I have like 2 or 3 different copies of this. But it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. I haven't seen it in years. And I remember when I tried to watch it, I actually started having like a panic attack. And not because I can't handle like torture. It's not because I can't handle gore. But for some reason, one day I got really high is basically what happened. And I started getting like tachycardia. I think I just got too high. And I was watching this movie, and you know, it's got some pretty brutal, gory sequences in it. But yeah, Mark of the Devil. And let me just show you this slip cover. But yeah, this is another one of those exploitation films. It actually goes beyond that a little bit too. It's actually pretty good because of the acting from Herbert Lom and Udo Kier, the legendary Udo Kier. But yeah, Mark of the Devil. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. This was one of those movies that was released in the 70s where they gave you like barf bags in the theater. You know, but yeah, Mark of the Devil. Get on it. Now, next movie in the pile, this was the only one that I got from Scream Factory, and I want to say I got this when Scream Factory had their sale recently. And yeah, The Slumber Party Massacre, parts 1 and 2, double feature on 4K. I actually held off on this one for a while because, you know, I already have Slumber Party Massacre 1 on 4K. I have the second one on Blu-ray. Part 2 was definitely in need of a good transfer. My only complaint about this, actually 2 complaints, minor complaints, is the fact that they didn't give this movie a slip cover. And Scream Factory is really weird about that. Sometimes they'll give their movies slip covers, and sometimes they won't. And also, Part 2 is kind of, I mean, it's kind of iconic at this point. I would think that it needs its own individual release. But they kind of keep cramming Part 2 into these double features. And they did it with Part 3. You know, the old Blu-ray that Scream Factory put out, you know, it was a few years ago. They put Part 2 in with Part 3, and now they did it with the first one. I think it needs its own release. Because Part 2 is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's better than the first one, but Part 2, I mean, it's just awesome. It's like a rock and roll musical. It actually reminds me a lot of that heavy metal horror that they did in the late 80s. I mean, you could kind of lump it in with all that. Movies like Black Roses and Rock and Roll Nightmare and Trick or Treat even. Slumber Party Massacre 2 is great. Even the first one is great. Directed by Amy Holden Jones. She went on to write The Relic. She went on to write Beethoven. And she went on to write Mystic Pizza with Julia Roberts. So yeah, but this was her first movie. I mean, the Slumber Party Massacre, it's great. I mean, it's epic. It's a classic early 80s slasher. If you haven't seen it, it's really fun. And the sequel is batshit crazy. Definitely check that out too. But yeah, Slumber Party Massacre 1 and 2 from Scream Factory on 4K. Let's move on to the next one. Next up in the pile, we have a couple of Criterions. We have the Blu-ray of Labomba, a movie from 1987, and it's got Lou Diamond Phillips in it. It was directed by a guy named Luis Valdez. You know, this movie, it's I haven't seen it since I was like a little kid. It used to come on TV all the time. But Labomba's good. It's the biographical story about Richie Valens who died at the age of 17, and he was with Buddy Holly in The Big Bopper. But yeah, this is a pretty good movie. And then another thing I picked up from Criterion during the flash sale is a movie called Freaks, and it also has The Unknown and The Mystic. So yeah, that is Freaks. Todd Browning's Freaks. Now, I haven't seen these 2 movies, but I'm glad they included them. Freaks is just legendary. If you guys haven't seen Freaks, you'll definitely see how that influenced a lot of movies later on. But I picked these up during the Criterion flash sale. And, you know, Criterion, sometimes they do these flash sales. Well, they'll have movies on sale at Barnes & Noble. But then Criterion actually does their own flash sale on their website. And it's like for one day only. So I had to jump on these titles. Freaks and Labomba from Criterion. Next up in the stack, we have a couple of movies from Umbrella, an Australian company Bad Boy Bubby, and A Dangerous Summer. Now, A Dangerous Summer, just starting out with that one. This movie's got Tom Skerritt and James Mason, which is why I bought it. But I actually heard it's kind of a piece of shit. But you know, it supposedly is pretty awful in its creative choices and its execution. But like I said, I had to buy it. Tom Skerritt, James Mason. I actually didn't really know it was that bad either until I looked up on IMDb. And I know you can't always trust IMDb, but I looked it up and it had like a 3.3 rating. So, I don't know. It's probably pretty bad. But this movie is apparently based on some real-life wildfires that actually tore through the area of Sydney, Australia in the late 70s and the early 80s. So, you know, I mean, for that reason alone, I mean, I might check it out for that. Probably not anytime soon, but because I need to watch Bad Boy Bubby. And Bad Boy Bubby, this is a movie that a buddy of mine I used to work with at Family Video, he would tell me about this movie. And he was like, Rich, you got to watch Bad Boy Bubby. He was like, it's trippy, it's disturbing, it's kind of moving. It deals with the human condition. I just never got around to watching Bad Boy Bubby. And I had the DVD from Blue Underground that they put out, like, I don't know, sometime in the mid-2000s. And I just never watched it. But now that I have the Blu-ray from Umbrella, I'm definitely going to check out Bad Boy Bubby. Supposedly it's really gritty and disturbing. And yeah, so we have Bad Boy Bubby and A Dangerous Summer, these classic films. I don't know about classic, but cult classics probably. And I picked these movies up from Diabolic, and a lot of the times you got to check the region code on them. This one is region free, I do believe. Yeah, and this one is region B, which is no big deal because I have a region free player. But if you ever go to Diabolic, they do sell a lot of imports, so just beware of that. But yeah, Bad Boy Bubby and A Dangerous Summer from Umbrella Entertainment. Check them out. Next up from Diabolic, we have 100 Tears. This is kind of like a movie, kind of like Terrifier. Not much of a plot. It's basically just about a clown going around killing people. Lots of gore. It has a pretty good performance from Rain Brown in it, I remember. But I remember it being kind of boring. I didn't really get into 100 Tears, but I found this on Diabolic because I just had the DVD. And then I saw this was a Region B release. So it's a German release, which is, like, you know, like I said, no big deal. I have a region free player. But I didn't really look close enough. I thought it was a region free, you know, North American release. I don't even know if this movie has a North American Blu-ray release. But 100 Tears, directed by Marcus Koch. And he's known for his, like, gory special effects. He's done a lot of effects work for other horror films. But yeah, this is a movie I haven't seen since it probably came out in like 2007. But yeah, 100 Tears. Next up in the pile that I got also from Diabolic DVD. These are from Cauldron Films though. Cauldron Films. Phantom of Death. I guess that's the alternate title. But it's a Ruggero Deodato film and it's called Off Balance. And it has Edwige Fenech in it, who's hot as hell. I love her. And Michael York and Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis. But yeah, I don't really know what Off Balance is all about, but I'm going to check it out really soon. But yeah, that's the cover, pretty much the same as the slip. And then also from Cauldron Films, I got a movie called The Last Match. And I have no idea what the hell this is about. I think it's about a girl who's imprisoned, and her dad is like a football coach. And he goes to rescue her or something, and he takes the whole football team with him. I think that's what this movie's about. I was loosely reading the synopsis on this, but there is the cover for The Last Match. And here is the slip. So yeah, The Last Match. I will have to watch that one pretty soon. I don't know when. Got a lot of movies to watch, but it actually looks pretty badass. It's probably, you know, a run-of-the-mill B picture. But yeah, it looks cool. I mean, football players with guns, fucking awesome. You can't go wrong with that. Now, next up, I also got this from Diabolic. I think the rest of these movies in the pile I got from Diabolic. I'm not sure. But this movie, Scum, from 1979. It's directed by Alan Clark, and it features Ray Winstone, a very young Ray Winstone. If you guys don't know who he is, he was in The Departed, and he was also in Sexy Beast, which is an awesome, underrated movie. I suggest you check that one out. It's one of my favorites. But Ray Winstone's really young in this, and it's just a gritty, brutal, powerful film. I haven't seen it in a few years, but it was based on Alan Clark's TV play that was actually banned a couple years before this movie even came out. This movie has a documentary feel to it, and it kind of gives you like an inside look at incarcerated youth, kind of like a Scared Straight program, you know, but it's way more brutal and harrowing than that, though. I can't even compare it to the Scared Straight program. That doesn't do it justice. This movie's pretty bleak. It's hard-hitting. So if you like that kind of stuff, you'll definitely like Scum. Check it out. I think this is a region. No, this is all region, actually. So yeah, check out Scum. Now, next one in the stack, I've been really wanting to talk about this one. I was waiting on this movie for a long time. I had it pre-ordered like 3 or 4 months ago. But Messiah of Evil from 1974, directed by Willard Huyck and Gloria Katz. Now, they would end up going on to work with George Lucas on like American Graffiti. They wrote the script for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and also Howard the fucking Duck. So yeah, they did this little sleeper hit from 1974, and it's about this woman who goes searching for her artist father, and she ends up in this little seaside town. It reminds me a lot of Dead and Buried, although this movie predates Dead and Buried. It actually has like a Gene Roland feel to it. Like, if you've ever seen like any films from Gene Roland, there's this dreamy, eerie feel to it. And there's some really notable set pieces in this movie at a movie theater and at a grocery store. It's really nightmarish and it's really grim. It just has that horror feel to it. Now, supposedly this transfer is kind of botched. I don't know because I haven't watched it yet. It's not a 4K, but I do have like this movie on Blu-ray from Code Red. So I want to kind of compare the two because a lot of people are saying that the colors are overly saturated in this movie. And I don't know. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, Messiah of Evil, man. It's just an atmospheric, creepy cult movie. If you guys like that kind of stuff, then definitely check out Messiah of Evil. I don't even know if you can get this anymore. This was a limited run. I think limited to 3,000 copies, I do believe. But yeah, Messiah of Evil. Definitely check it out. Second to last in the pile, we have a movie called Final Exam. This was a slasher movie from 1981. And yeah, look at that slipcover. Look how glossy and shiny it is. I have this movie on Blu-ray, and I used to have the DVD. And yeah, Final Exam. It's just one of those movies from the early 80s that follows all those familiar tropes and formulas that we know about. It's basically about a psycho killer that shows up on a college campus and starts slashing through all the jocks and the co-eds. But yeah, this movie kind of goes by the Halloween playbook. Although the killer, he doesn't really have a mask, he doesn't really have a motive. There's not really much explained in this movie, which I actually kind of like that about this movie. I think that kind of gives it its charm. This is a movie that I used to put on a lot just to kind of put it on the background. Stuff like this and Terror Train and My Bloody Valentine. I mean, I eat this shit up. But it is a mindless slasher movie. It doesn't really have a lot of memorable gore in it. I don't even think there's any nudity in it either. But it's not a deal breaker for this movie. But yeah, just to let you guys know, I picked this up from Dark Force Entertainment. I didn't get this from Diabolic. I'm not sure if you can even get this 4K still, but Dark Force Entertainment put this out, and also the next movie I'm about to tell you about. But yeah, Final Exam, it's actually got some really interesting like character moments. Like, I remember the lead girl, she has like this guy friend, and there's just like this really good chemistry between them. Like, the acting's not bad. She's got some good chemistry with the guy, and there's like this sexual tension between the two, but that was really probably the most memorable part of Final Exam. Was the performance from the lead girl, and I don't even think she went on to do much after this movie. But Final Exam from 1981, definitely get on this movie if you haven't seen it. Now, last but definitely not least, we have Julie Darling, and this is also known as Daughter of Death. Now, if you guys have not seen Julie Darling, holy shit, okay? I first saw this movie when Code Red put it out on DVD a few years back, and the first time I watched it, I couldn't believe what the fuck I was seeing, to be honest. It's about this disturbed teenage girl with an Electra complex. She has an unhealthy obsession with her dad. And, yeah, her mom, like, wants to send her to a boarding school, I think. And her mom ends up getting murdered by, like, a grocery delivery boy. And Julie witnesses it. And she doesn't do shit about it because she doesn't like her mom. And her mom ends up dying. And the dad her dad had been having an affair with Sybil Danning. And Sybil Danning is like the new threat. You know, after her mom's out of the picture, Sybil Danning comes into the picture, and, you know, Julie wants daddy all to herself. It's pretty sick. This movie's really sick, but it's the kind of stuff that I really miss. Like, I miss, like, really, you know, fucked up transgressive movies like this. But anyway, when Julie finds out that her dad wants to marry Sybil Danning, it just completely uproots everything in Julie's life. And she actually attempts to get the same grocery delivery guy, the same one who killed her mom, to do the same to Sybil Danning. So it's pretty fucked up. There's lots of weird psychosexual stuff going on in this movie, lots of incestuous undertones, but that's what makes this movie so entertaining. Like, if you guys haven't seen it, it's really compelling. And I make it sound like it's just a schlocky B trash movie. It's not. It's actually really good. It has a good performance from the main girl. And I forget her name, but Sybil Danning's good in it. And Anthony Franciosa turns in a good performance as Julie Darling's father. Like I said, this movie's called Daughter of Death also. I don't even know if I said that. But yeah, she's getting rid of mommy to have daddy all to herself. Trust me, you've never seen anything like Julie Darling, and it explores a lot of the same kind of themes that movies like The Bad Seed explored, but this movie's way more disturbing and transgressive. I can't even really go into it. I will just tell you that I highly recommend it. So yeah, here's Julie Darling, the slip cover, and there's the back of it. Oh, okay. And yeah, and then we have this cover. And yeah, this was from Dark Force Entertainment. I don't know if you can still get this, but definitely pick up Julie Darling, because it's a slept-on movie. It's such a fucking deep cut, and I highly recommend it. But that is it, guys. Those are all the movies that well, not all the movies, but close to all the movies that I picked up in October. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. You've been listening to Rich with Red Phone Video. I talk about horror. I talk about physical media. And if you guys like that kind of stuff, be sure to stab the like button and subscribe to this channel. And yeah, I will see you guys on the next video.